why am I doing a video and why am I doing a NBA 2012-2013 season playoff predictions. Now I won't be doing the seeds through the 9 through 15. I'll only be doing the 1 through 8. And I'm not in favor of any of these teams. I equally hate most of them, except for one, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. That I'll get to that later. But in the West seed, the top 8 teams are at number 1, San Antonio Spurs. I think they're gonna keep winning the first seed because they have such a talented group, but they just can't get far into the playoffs. At the number 2 seed, OKC Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yes, they lost James Harden, but they still have the Durantula. They still have Russell Westbrook. They could have won the first seed this year if they had Harden still, but they don't. At the 3rd seed, the LA Clippers. Get that? I think Chris Paul will try his hardest. Blake Griffin would do as best as he can. All the other players will try their best to keep Chris Paul, because if they do not get far into the playoffs, if they do not do good, Chris Paul is out of there. At the 4th seed, y'all might hate me for this, but the LA Lakers for putting them this low. Now, I've seen in the first games that they still haven't won a game because of their team chemistry. They do not go together. They're not a team that goes together as well as other teams. But Dwight Howard, if he wants to become the centerpiece of the LA Lakers, you need to stop committing fouls and get into the game. At the 5th seed, I got the Dallas Mavericks, and I think Dirk Nowitzki is trying to keep them together. They added a lot of big pieces to their puzzle, like O.J. Mayo and Chris Kaman, which will be a excellent season for him. At number 6, Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry, Andrew Bogut, Harrison Barnes, David Lee. They're gonna score. They added Carl Landry. They still have Klay Thompson. They added Harrison Barnes. They're gonna have a good season this year, in my opinion. At the 7th seed, I have the Houston Rockets because of that trade that sent Kevin Martin, who is a streaky shooter, and Jeremy Lamb, who was a prospect who didn't show much confidence in his basketball skills. They traded away draft picks for James Harden, Lazar Hayward, who they just released a couple weeks ago. After the trade, Daquan Cook and Cole Walters, who never got a chance in OKC and will this year. At the 8th seed, I have Minnesota Timberwolves. They added Brandon Roy. They have at the starting 5. They have Rubio, Roy, Karolinko, Love, and Pevovic or something like that. Pevovic will have an amazing season. Will stand out like he did last year. Brandon Roy will have an okay season, returning from his injuries and temporary retirement. Andrew Karolinko will have an amazing season after returning from Russia. Now in the East, on the first seed, I have the Miami Heat. I hate the Miami Heat. I'm not a bandwagon fan. I honestly think they could win it this year. At the 2nd seed, because they have Ray Allen and they have a bunch of three-point shooters who can get them through, just like in the final game of the the series of the finals, when Mike Miller and just went like 5 for 5 or something like that. At the 2nd seed, I have the Boston Celtics. Now, the Boston Celtics lost Ray Allen, but gained Courtney Lee, Jason Terry, and a bunch of prospects that could lead them to the future. Fab Melo is probably going to be their future. I understand that it's not intentional for them to be in his future, but he could. At the 3rd seed, Indiana, everyone might say, no, they lost Darren Collison, but they still have Danny Granger, they still have Paul George, they still have Roy Hibbert, they added DJ Augustine, who's an underrated point guard. This year they might get past a couple teams. At the 4th seed, I have the Chicago Bulls. Now, probably the fourth of the season, which would be games 1 through 24 or 25, Derrick Rose will probably be out. So they have to rely on themselves to get it. Yes, they did good in the playoffs by themselves, but I don't think they could do it in the regular season. like different teams. A lot of teams have new talent and everything. At the fifth seed, I have the Hawks. Now the Hawks, of course, lost Joe Johnson, but they still have Josh Smith. They added Devin Harris, Deshaun Stevenson, Kyle Korver, who can hit those big game-winning shots. Al, Al, Devin Harris, Al Horford, who could just be in the post. They have a lot of talent, and they still won't get far into this. So the sixth seed, I have the Brooklyn Nets. They're a new team. They added Joe Johnson to the core four. I think it's really the next five. Chris Humphries isn't in the picture. It's Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, Gerald Wallace, and Brooke Lopez, who they call the core four in the Brooklyn area. They really have a lot of talent. I expect a trade in the middle of the season, and then probably I wish they could trade for a guy who can just spot up shoot. I hope they trade for like Korver or Reddick or Budinger, who is okay 3-point shooter. At the seventh seed, I have the New York Knicks. As you see, the Brooklyn Nets win the New York Showdown. So they lose Amari Stoudemire the first part of the season, but they can still have him for the rest of it. At the eighth seed, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, they lost Andre Iguodala, but they still have Andrew. They got Andrew Bynum. They have a lot of pieces left, but they still don't have Andre Iguodala as a problem. Now on to the next round, to the playoffs. So now the first and eighth seed for the West, the San Antonio Spurs versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, will be in a 4-1 win by the Spurs. The Minnesota Timberwolves have basically only one person, two people who have knowledge of the playoffs, and Brandon Roy and Andre Karolinko. The LA Clippers versus Golden State will be in a 4-2 win. LA Clippers will win. Of course, everyone will be still playing as best as they can to keep Chris Paul. Lakers versus Mavericks. I have the Lakers winning in 4-win, 5 games. LA would just be posterizing, just dominating Dallas. Dallas is getting too old. They need to trade. They need to look into the future. I honestly think they should either trade Dirk Nowitzki or release him and let him just go into free agency. Dirk Nowitzki is going to be the one guy who you're going to keep. It's just like the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to keep on keeping the old guys, and then in the future they have nobody because they had too much money on their hands and they kept making the playoffs for them. The 2-7 Oklahoma City Thunder versus Houston. I really think it's going to be an awesome showdown. James Harden wants to retaliate for OKC Thunder trading him. He's going to be so angry and stuff. I think it's going to be a 4-3 game. Game in 7, OKC is going to win. Houston, of course, is not going to win. They don't have as much talent as OKC because Durant and Westbrook would just dominate, and I bet Kevin Martin will do the same. And Jeremy Lamb will average probably 10 points in that series. So, in the next round, Spurs versus LA Clippers. I think the Clippers will win in 7. You look at, there won't be as much shot blocking because there will be lots of alley-oops. Lob City will just dominate, but the Spurs will give them a run for the money. So, of course, the Spurs eliminated again early into the playoffs. The LA Lakers versus OKC. I think this is going to be another showdown against the OKC Thunder. They're going to have probably the toughest time in the playoffs, but they're not going to make it through. They're going to lose to the LA Lakers 4-3. Games in 7. LA Lakers, they have a center. If I was the LA Lakers and it's that game, I would give it to Mr. Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard just needs to show it off. And then, of course, Kobe Bryant needs to just go off as too, because they're not. Steve Nash is a good defensive player. Metta World Peace will try to. They should, of course, they're going to trade to get a good defensive player. Now, the LA Clippers versus LA Lakers. It's gonna. I think it's gonna be really tough. But think about it. It will be in the same arena all 6 games. I think the LA Lakers will win in 6 games, and Chris Paul will just say, "Yes, we got far. We got to the conference finals." I honestly think that he'll stay for probably 4 more years, and then of course try to demand a trade like he did to the the New Orleans Hornets. If you hear a clicking noise, I'm sorry. I just need to always check how much time it is. I have a 15-minute limit on my channel. I'm very sorry for that. Now, in Miami and Philly, I have Miami winning 4 and 6 games. Mostly because Miami's just a team that won a championship. They're going for another one. LeBron's going to be hungry for another one. He's had his first ring. He realizes how big it is in his career. How more people talked about him being compared to Michael Jordan, which he isn't yet. So that's going to be an option for him. At 3-6, the Indiana Pacers versus the Nets. It's going to be a 7-game win for the Brooklyn Nets. I honestly think that the Indiana Pacers could make it that high in the playoffs, but not make it far because they don't have as much talent as the core four. The Bulls versus the Hawks, the 4th and 5th seed. I think the Bulls can take it in 4-2. Then Derrick Rose will be back. They don't have good defense on the point guard side. All they have is Lewis Williams, Devin Harris, and Jeff Teague. But they'll put Lewis Williams at shooting guard. The Bulls will have too much talent, and I think they can take it. At 2-7, the Celtics and Knicks. I think the Celtics could just dominate this series. The Knicks are just terrible in the playoffs in the last 4 years. So 4-1, the Celtics win. Miami versus the Nets. This is going to be a 4-1 game. It's going to be 5 games. Miami's just going to go on and with their business and lose 3 games so far in the playoffs. It's going to be this is, I hope, going to be the best playoff run in an NBA team if they can make it. You'll see later. Bulls versus Celtics. I think this could go to 6 games, maybe 7, but I see the Celtics winning 4-2. It'll push them to the playoffs. And of course, the rivalry that's been going on for the past 3 seasons with the Big Three. Now I think the Big Four with Ray Allen, who just made a 4-point play last night, which is pretty epic. I watched the game. Now Miami versus the Celtics. I can see this, of course, going to 7 games because it is such a living rivalry. Everyone wants to win. So of course now the Miami Heat will win in 7. The Celtics have to depend on Rajon Rondo. If Rajon Rondo doesn't do good, the whole team won't. Now Miami versus the Lakers, which is everyone's championship game, and I know it's in mine, but I'm not a bandwagon fan. I honestly think this is going to happen. A 4-2 win game by the Miami Heat. The LA Lakers probably will just crumble. Dwight Howard will get like he did in Orlando, get so close and just die. Just like not do good. He will just fail miserably because he doesn't have as much of thing anymore because he is getting a little tired. He will foul out a lot in that series. LeBron James will posterize him. So I see the Miami Heat winning next game. So now on the predictions for the awards. At Rookie of the Year, I honestly see Anthony Davis losing to probably maybe the 2 top people I think could win this is Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard will have a terrific season, I think, but both players still won't make Epic into the playoffs. At Coach of the Year, I think it would be, of course, Eric Spoelstra, bringing the team to a good record. They'll probably lose 20 games or something like that, go 62 and 20, or go even higher. I mean, they could win 70 games this season. I think they didn't get it last year because there's only 63, so we don't know yet. At Executive of the Year, I honestly think will be Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge will just or Bernard King. They would just improve their team so well. So yeah, most improved player. I honestly think will be Marcus Morris of the Houston Rockets. Last season he was terrible. They realized what a draft bust he was, but I saw in the first couple games that he's averaged like 15 points a game, so far he's doing very well. Now, a defensive player of the year, I think Dwight Howard and LeBron James will go head to head. Tyson Chandler, I honestly think, did not deserve it, and Dwight Howard did. Tyson Chandler was just one of those people who can only rebound. In defensive player, you have to rebound and you have to shot block, and you have to have your team being one of the high defensive teams. And New York Knicks weren't. The Orlando Magic were. So honestly, the MVP I think will be three-way race with Kobe, Durant, Black Mamba, Durantula, and the King. Who would win? I don't know. So I want you to post in the comments below right now. The Durantula.